Shalom Rastafari, and then continuing in the study concerning that word Teshua, that was in Numbers 18 and 1, and right here what we're seeing, we're looking at a picture of the Rebbe, the vid that the Rebbe just did on Abba Bivens of the ISUPK, and speaking about that Korah's rebellion, the ISUPK Korah's rebellion, Abba Bivens, the bald head, and these crazy bald heads, and you see that in this Torah portion with Korah. Now the interesting thing, Korah meaning ice, almost as in that bad sense, you almost get the sense of ice cold. And remember, we were saying that in the good sense, we were relating to the Ethiopian Enoch. Now the connection with the fact that which is interesting, that Korah being the congregation, right, being a congregation considered considerably within the church, just the same thing like the street corner Israelites, many of the Israelite camps being if you would, they would be Hebrews, right? But Hebrews that reject the Father Christ, QEDAMAWI, HAILE SELASSIE, or those of them that don't anymore, that learn, we give thanks and praises if they've grown out of that. But those that do that, and where we begin to get a understanding of it, is when we look into the linguistics or the idiom concerning the Afro-Shemitic, concerning the Hebrew. Now, what we did was, in that verse in Numbers chapter 21, and we want to give a shout out to the Wyndham Ayason, give thanks and praises for the Rastafari Midrashim in the 399th year, yours. And also we want to give a shout out, check out the article that he does on Korah's rebellion concerning Abba Bivens and the breaking off from the commandment keepers, the original commandment keepers, who highlighted by Rabbi Wentworth Arthur Matthews. You know what I'm saying? Now, back in the time in the revelations of Rastafari, and coming to the education where we saw the Rebbe, the Rabboni, and when you get into these higher studies in the Kabbalistics of the Almighty, the Almighty Elohim, Yahweh, the God from over the Mediterranean Sea, when you understand that form, when you understand that verse concerning Amos 9 and 7, aren't you as the children of the Ethiopians to me? Now, a lot of people go back and they be doing these DNA checks and all this stuff like that. And that's where they got the people fooled at. You can try to go do all these DNA tests and all that, but the Bible basically tells us how the children of Israel were scattered throughout the earth, and that the main tribe would be over in the most famous Babylon in the Revelation time, which would be America, would be USA. Now, if you want to try to act like that's somewhere else, or relationship to the old Babylon concerning like in the ancient times, the old Babylon concerning over there in the concerning like Iran, in the area over there in Saudi Arabia. I think that's where the old Babylon was at. The old Babylon was located. But now looking at this new Babylon, and looking at the system that the false priest, remember, because there were priests within the priesthood, within the kahuna, who will go against the elected of Ha Elohim. They will go against the elect of Ha Elohim. And in that, they would even go against the word of the Almighty. That's why he said that he would show how Aharon's rod would bud, that Aaron's rod would bud. Now, in our studying of this word that we seen right here, and we put it over here, Teshua, right? We put the word over here. Let's see, make sure we, there we go. So we don't have to come out too much, but the word is over here, Teshua. Now, if you look at right here, the word Teshua. Now, if you pay attention to up here, it says in the Hebrew, now in the Hebrew form, and let's go to it in the Hebrew. Let's say we go to that verse 14 and 34. Now, this verse, right? Remember that in this Torah portion, this word Teshua is in Numbers chapter 18 and 1. Now in the Hebrew, it starts at Numbers chapter 14 and 34. It kind of gives us a pretext of this kind of bearing the iniquity of the people. You know what I mean? This bearing the iniquity of the people. Now we give thanks for the study of our Afro-Shemitic language concerning the Gu'uz and the Abu Gida and the roots of the Afro-Shemitic concerning the Royal Amharic, the king's language. You know what I mean? The pure language that the King of Kings took from the old, the ancient and the new speaking Amhara, from the old ancient of the Oromo and the Tigray, and he put that together. And we have the pure language of the King of Kings given to us in the Metzahaf Kedus, the book of the seven seals. He who is found worthy to open seven seals. Revelation 5:5. Go check it out. So that will bring us to the context of, as we said again, even if you were to do DNA checks or you were to go back and do checks, if we check the prophecy or the scriptures or the parables correctly, we would come to Amos 9 and 7. Aren't you as the children of the Ethiopians to me, O Israel? Now, interestingly, in this verse, Numbers 18 and 1. And so we will go and show you for ourselves. So you can see over here in this Torah portion when we're dealing with Koreh and what it says over here in Numbers 18 and 1. You know, Numbers 18 and 1, it says, and the Yahweh said to Aharon, Aaron, right, thou and thy sons, right? Now these are the children of Aharon. Remember, he says thee and thou and thy sons, because there's a certain way that Yahweh says this. And Banim, the builders, the true masons, not Freemasonry, because we're not talking about people who get together in secret organizations to practice, you know, to plan evil, secret things against the masses of people, as they say is going on, right? But they have no power over Ha-Elohim or Jah Rastafari children or the elect of Ha-Elohim who are studied in the Torah, the law of the Ha-Elohim, and are able to put that together with his imperial majesty, QEDAMAWI Haile Selassie, the conquer line of the tribe of Judah, who entered Ethiopia into the League of Nations as the 73rd nation, also with China, and also had recommendations for Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, to be concluded in there as well, which is another story concerning, you know, the alliance and alienation. The Alliance and Alienation, the book by Haggai Ehrlich. Now here in this verse, as we said in Numbers 18 chapter 1, 18 and 1, it says, and the Yahweh said to Aharon, thou and thy sons, thy banim, and thy fathers. Now check this out, thy fathers, Rastafari, the house. This is the entire house, their father's bait, or that true church. You know what I mean? That true church. With thee shall bear, and we'll tell you how we know this. With thee shall bear Nasa. Now, in the simple pretext and the simple context before you go into the Hebrew, just dealing with the King James, it numbers 8:53-75, which is Nasa, to lift up. But now, when we look at that in the Hebrew, it's not worded like that, but the word is actually Teshua. And we're going to show you a little something, the revelation of the word Teshua now, right? Before we finish that verse off to show you what that verse means, the revelation of the word Teshua is here in Zechariah 4 and 7, which says, who art thou, O great mountain? Har, right? Remember that word in the Hebrew is Har, and the mountains where his majesty was first made governor, Teferi Makonnen, where he was first made governor in the Harar, because he was born in the province of Harar. You know what I mean? The whole Harmageddon and Harmageddon, and the rock that was that mountain, that was that rock that was carved with the eye's own hands, with Ha-Elohim, with the Almighty's own hands. Remember, he said that he will carve out, right, that rock, that bane, that stone that was carved out with his own hands, right, that it would dash the foot, right, that it would dash the foot and it would smash into pieces all the governments of Babylon. So if you're dealing with that and you're looking at that in the book of Daniel and you tracing time, So if you look at you know, it basically smashes on all, you know, the golden age of Greece, the iron age of Greece, the golden age of Greece, the brazen age of Greece, the bronze age, and then you get to the iron age, and then the iron mixed with clay. So basically it weakens, and it weakens into this point of it's mixed. It becomes mixed up. You know what I mean? And that rock, which was hewn out with Jah's own hands, you know what I mean? The Almighty's own hands, or at the place where he chose to call his name, that Harmageddon, that rock would smash that statue of Nebuchadnezzar, right? Nebuchadnezzar, which was the king of Babylon, on one level. So understanding this transgression within the church, within the people of the people within the church, and the bearing their iniquities. So now part of walking it out of Rastafari is watching how the rebellious rebel against I and I, but then it never stops our faith. We continue, we get stronger, we're stronger. This is something that was expected. That's why Yahweh made this testimony for the children of Aharon, which says, and the Yahweh said to Aharon, thou and thy sons in thy father's house now, thou and thy sons, and it says thy father's house. So this is the entirety of the family. In a certain sense, we could look at that as, you know, the head of the fraternal order. Even over here in the West, we look at the Lion of Judah Society and other orders that were put together under His Imperial Majesty's name, like the Naya Bingi. And in a sense, we can also look at the Ethiopian World Federation. But remember what happens to the outer court when they're not following the word of HaElohim or His Imperial Majesty or the priests, or they're not subject to the honor or giving credit or honor where honor is due, and not making them subject to the HAILE, to the powers of His Imperial Majesty, QEDAMAWI, HAILE SELASSIE. And what happens, the outer court is trampled for like 2.5 years, right, in Revelation. Now, so here it says that, and thy father's house with thee shall bear the what? The iniquity, the awon, the depravity, the penalty, the depravity of the sanctuary. And it's interesting the way it's worded in the Hebrew. And thou and thy sons now with thee shall bear, right? With thee shall Nasa lift up the iniquity of what? Your kahuna, your priesthood. So now first was the iniquity of the Holy of Holies, the Megdesh, the Holy of Holies, and the Megdesh being the sanctuary, Now the link with the word Teshua, because remember we showed you in Zechariah 4:7, the revelation of that word was an exclamation. It's a shout. You know what I mean? It's an exclamation. It's shout. So who thou, O great had got caught up in explaining Hara before Zerubbabel descended, right? Before the Zerubbabel shall become a plain, Mishor, and he shall bring forth Yatsa, right? He shall go out, right? The head, the Rosha, the Ibn, the stone that the builders refused. The Rosha, look at that right there in the Hebrew, Rosha, Raz, or the Raz, the Raza, the headstone, the Rosha. And it says this noun is a feminine noun, so we see the connection with the church now. You know, because the church being the bride of Christ. And we see this rebellion with Korah, because this word Teshua is linked with Korah. It's linked with bearing the iniquity of even the 10 spies. And we'll go back into that, where that is. Now it says that they will shout. So here we go. Teshua, see? And it's spelled in whole here. We'll go and look it up in the parts, because actually where we see this Teshua at, right? Where we see this Teshua at, you see the we'll show you the differences. If you look at the differences with this Teshua, if you can see it, but if you see it says Teshua, this Teshua, crashing, a loud clamor, Joe, Rastafari, crying, a noise, a shouting, a stirring up. And it says noun feminine, as in the true church sense of the shout, exclamation. You know, if you will, as the Ethiopians do in their exclamation. You know what I mean? And this other shout in a sense, in a biblical sense, if we get close to the Father, God, Ha-Elohim, Jo, Rastafari. Okay, now you see here it says Teshua, a crashing or a loud clamor. And this is interesting when we were speaking with Wyndham Ison one moment where we were having a discussion and we were speaking about what the armies of the Assyrians might have had heard when Jah sent that loud noise. So this is the reason why we have to pray to Yahweh. We pray to Jah and, you know, chanting this chant, Jah, Rastafari, in righteousness, right? We're able to put 1,000 to flight. Now, if you look in this word, you know, as he said, aren't you as the children of the Ethiopians to me, O Israel? This dictionary here by Charles Eisenberg here, this Ethiopic dictionary, the word we're looking up at right here, this word now, Teshekama. So through the Afro-Shemitic linguistics, coming back through the Afro-Shemitic linguistics and tracing the Adi Zemen or the ancient times, you know what I'm saying? The ancient times, or what comes from that template that was given as the instruction of the Almighty from the ancients or the true elders. You know what I mean? Now, this may be, since this was written in 1841 and the Son of Man was born in 1892, right? Since this was written in 1841, we have Teshkami. Now, remember, we're going from the Teshua, from the Hebrew to the old Teshkami. Now, this is probably the ancient of the form of the word Teshkami. And this was, okay, so of course, as you can see here in the ancients, that they had this written down 3,000 years ago. Okay, so they had this written down from the ancient Ge'ez form, right? Before the Masoretic text was even, is even permitted or created. But we see the linguistics and the codes. When we study the codes and the words, we can see the similarities. Teshua. Now, the interesting thing about this Teshua, as we were saying over here, you know, as we were saying over here, where it says the shoutings, Teshua, right? Now, if you look at the spelling, we're going to show you something why Jesus Christos says not a jot nor a tittle shall go from the law. And this is also concerning those false Israelite tribes who try to take away the jots and the tittles. Remember, Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, who they, you know, call Yahweh. You know what I mean? That he said not a jot nor a tittle. Nor a jot nor a tittle shall go from the law. And if you look at these oings, these oing or these vowel pointing sounds in the Hebrew to disseminate word from word. And that's why this was important. Now, this is not needed in Amerindia because every vowel sound is said, if you know anything about the Ethiopian Fidel, or you're familiar with the Abugida, because those familiar with the Abugida is the ancient Afro-Shemitic form of the Hebrew. And we were also learning that from the Rebbe, the Rabboni, just did a video, the Rebbe of the great Rabboni Jesus Christos, the Rebbe Wyndham Yadon, you know, and shout out to the great Rabboni, the Most High, the Bein Ha-Elohim, Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ as well. And that he was showing us this connection with the Abugida, the ancient Afro-Shemitic linguistics concerning the Ge'ez, coming from the Ge'ez over into the Hebrew here. You know what I mean? So remember, now if you look at these vowel pointings, Teshua, if you can see it really good, we don't know how good you can see it. We don't want to zoom in because we kind of don't want to lose the entirety of the area what we're dealing with. Okay, but if you see here Teshua and the vowel pointings, if you look at the vowel pointings, right, this type of Teshua, which is this bearing, this iniquity in the Hebrew, it shows that this, notice this is a latter point. So as you grow in the Rastafari and you bearing the iniquity of the naysayers and the transgressors and the Korays and those who went the way of Balaam and Korah, as it says in the book of Jude, you know, they went the way of Korah and Balaam, right? That means they went against the covenant. They went against the covenant of his imperial majesty, QEDAMAWI, HAILE Selassie. Joe Rastafari, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. And if you look at these vowel pointings here, they're different here. So this is a Teshua, 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 right? And over here is Teshau, 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 more on the heavy, you know, the heavy of the bearing. But that they bear similarity in the scripture, how it brings them these two words. You know, the notice the letterings are the same, but the vowel sounding is just a little different here. Teshua, Teshua, right? That jah, that exclaiming, that exultation, or that overcoming sound, a crashing or loud clamor, right? A joy, a noise, a shouting, a stirring up of the enemy, you know what I mean? Or stirring up of Yahweh to help I and I. All right. And then from this to show, which here, the Teshau, going back to where we were saying it was first mentioned at in Numbers 14:34. Now, the fact that it's mentioned here in Numbers 14:34, right? In that verse, this is where it's first mentioned at in the Hebrew here. In the Hebrew here, this is what Teshau is first mentioned at in the Hebrew here. Now, we know that it has a relation to the word in Amharic, Teshek, because we were looking over here and the word actually meaning Teshkami. And this is the old school style, though, you know, in the ancients. The more modern style will be here, where his imperial majesty turned into its pure form, and his imperial majesty using the language of the old and the new to purify. You know what I mean? Came up with this purified Teshekemu, which is very interesting. Teshekemu, you know, remember from the word in it, Teshkami, right? And it says bearer, carrier, conveyor, or porter, right? So the carrying of the poles. Now that is not, and it shows it here, Exodus 25:15. I think that sometime when they're looking at in the ancients with the way the Bible's written in the goods and stuff was, and we seen that in the last video that the Rebbe did, where he was showing the pointings from the Hebrew, where the the verses start as you study them day by day, and the relationship, the way they start is different from the translated into English form. Remember, the English is the newest form, and the oldest we're dealing with is the ancients, right? In the pure language of the King of Kings, give us the mystery and the revelation of what the Hebrew is saying, right? So remember that we were showing you this example of the word Teshua and Numbers 18:1. Right now, let us finish reading this verse so we can go back and show where that word is traced back to, where that word is. So, and the Yahweh said to Aharon, thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary. All right, the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood, So first it was of the sanctuary, right, being the Megdesh. Now there's a connection that we find out in studying, tracing the word into the Amharic, that there's a connection with the Mesewiya, which is the altar in Amrenya, the Mesewiya, which is the altar, or the Mizbeach, which the Mizbeach, as we were saying, the Miz, remember, Imma in front of Zabak. The Zabak is the sacrifice, right? Is the offering, the approach, the Kara. The Mizbeach is the mother's offering in a certain sense, as in the church. You know, so this is the whole congregation. You get to kind of see that there. You know what I mean? And this being the noun masculine, the Mekdesh is the place surrounding, which is the scene on the outside. The Mekdesh, how they seeing I and I from the outside, which is the Mekdesh. Us being in the Ohel, now it's called the tent of the testimonies, because those of us who say we are in Jesus Christ, in Rastafari, in Christ, in the truth of Christ, are inside of the tent. So we're in the ohel. We're in the ohel. From the outside viewing, they say it's considered the Megdesh. And we notice this from studying. You know what I mean? We notice this from studying. So let's, we'll get it together and make it accurate. Now, well, we were studying this word at, again. So since we finished that verse and we see what it says concerning Aharon with the sanctuary, they shall bear their iniquity